Today we're going to look at FullStackHero, a C#.NET web application development toolkit for creating a boilerplate setup for your web applications with everything already pre-built and installed. So you can see here how I have the website up. This framework if you are creating a web application and you want to have all of the built-in security, authorization, database functionality, repositories, DTOs, and entities using Entity Framework, as well as containerization with Docker, support for Azure and AWS, and support for multiple database types. And all of this comes built into the framework. And you can read through the documentation to get a better idea of how this works, but it supports multi-tenancy, premium client applications, a production-ready API, utilizing solid architecture and clean separation of code. So these are all great. There's two flavors of this. One is the newer one, which is .NET 9 using the Blazor WebAssembly boilerplate. And the one we're going to be looking at today is the .NET 7 version, which is the Web API. It's kind of a simpler architecture. It does some .NET 7, so you're going to have to use C# 11. It would be great once this is upgraded to .NET 9 and we can get C# 13. You can take a look at how to get started development with FullStackHero. Essentially, you will install the FSH CLI tool. Once you've installed this tool, you can go into an empty directory and simply execute FSH API new followed by the project name. And this will create a whole new template for you to start working from. So you'll get source code, which will look something like this, as you can see here. So in the directory structure, you can see that you have a source folder. This is where all of your important code will reside. And what you'll want to do when you first get started is head on into host, configurations, and go into database. And here you're going to set your database provider, which I'm using SQLite, which is nice and simple. I don't have to set up a Postgres database or MySQL or a SQL Server, followed by your connection string. In this case, I'm just naming it app.db. If you are using SQLite, don't forget to include a semicolon at the end, or you'll end up in a world of errors that can be very convoluted. You'll do the same thing in hangfire.json, add your storage provider and your connection string. And once you've configured all of that, you'll be able to run the application. And what you will get is you will end up with an application that looks like this. So here I'm just rendering a list of brands. There are two entities by default in your database that I'll show you. You have brands and products. I'm just listing all of the brands in a nice little material UI table that you can see here. And you'll also get a Swagger interface where you can interact with all of the API calls on all of the controllers. So taking a look back at the database, when you first run the application, it will automatically execute the entity framework database migrations and create an app.db. Since I'm using SQLite, you can see here we have several tables. Here are all of the brands. I've added a couple in here. And here are the products. You can see the product here. This was actually deleted. So this is a soft delete. It keeps the record in the DB, but marks as deleted. And that's one of the cool things about FullStackHero is that you get soft delete functionality as well as audit trails. You can see where I deleted that product and that brand and a brand right here are marked by deleted. You also have your users and your tenancy. We have one, which is just our root account. All of the API methods are secured, and they require a JWT token, a bearer authorization token, in order to execute. So let's take a look back at this Swagger interface. So you have a whole bunch of interaction that you can do. We can do all of these methods on brands. We can do the same thing on products. But the most important thing that you're going to want to do first before you can do anything is you have to authorize Swagger. So the way that you'll do that is you'll go down into tokens. You'll go to the API tokens. You'll go to try it out. You'll put in root followed by the email and the password. This is on the website, and then you'll hit execute. And what you'll get back is a token that you can use to unlock the application and authorize. So once we have our token, you can head up to the top here, go to authorize. I'll just log out, paste in that authorization token, and hit authorize. Just to test it, we'll go into brands. We'll say get all brands, try it out, and we'll execute this. So we just hit execute, and we get back a result with all of the brands from the database. We can do the same thing with products. Let's take a look at products. Say get all products, try it out, execute, and we get back, okay, so we have no products right now, which is fine because we're going to add one. But first, I want to show you how the code structure works for this. So as you saw, we're listing all of the brands in a little web form. This is just a Razor page. So let's take a look at the source code for that and see how to put that together. So first of all, in the controllers folder, you can see that you have the various APIs. And if we go to catalog, you can go to brands controller. You can see here, these are all the API endpoint methods. So I've added a new one that's just an HTTP GET for get all brands. And what it does is it just puts together an empty search request to return all of the brands. And that's how we're listing them in the table. So you can add as many endpoints as you like, including new entities, and construct an entire web application architecture right inside here. I've done the same thing with the products controller. You can see here how I've added an HTTP GET method for get all products. So once you have your controller methods in place, which these all come built in by default, just not the get alls, I created a pages and added just a brands page. And all this does is it just loops through the model of brands and renders a table. The way that we get that data is I've just created a brands model, and it just makes a request to the API v1 brands endpoint, which you saw on Swagger, to retrieve that data, decode the JSON, and populate the model with the result. So that's how you end up getting back a nice page that looks like this. So let's say that we want to modify the application to also render the list of products. Well, we can do that by adding a new section to this. So we are already calling, we're decoding the response for brand response, but we'll need to make this generic if we're going to be using products also. We can do that by creating a generic class here to decode the JSON. And then what we can do is to get the products, we will call the products endpoint from FullStackHero, and we will get the JSON response, and we will get the product response from decoding the JSON. And that should almost do it. Of course, we're not using brand DTO. We are using products DTO. So with this defined, we should be able to, let's refresh the page, and oh, first we have to render it also. So we'll copy this. We'll replicate this for products. like so. And we'll refresh the application. And you can see it compiling. And once it runs, we should be able to see a new table rendering on the web application. So if we take a look at the web application and refresh the page, you can see we have a new table, but it says no products found. So why is that? Well, if we take a look back at the application at the database, we can see that if we go to products, indeed there's only one product and it's actually deleted. So let's go ahead and add a new product. And again, we can do that in the Swagger UI for FullStackHero by adding a new product. Now, in order to add a new product, we will need a brand ID. So let's get all brands so that we can get a brand ID. Okay, we'll take this brand ID right here. I'll just copy it and then we'll head on down to products and we'll go to add a new product, try it out, and what we will call it is programming lesson. We'll just say learn to code.net. And for brand ID, we'll just paste in what we have and we'll give it a rate of $1 million. Then we'll go ahead and we'll say executes. And you can see here we have a product ID that's been returned. So let's see if it actually worked. We'll head back to our brands page and we'll refresh. Ta-da! We have a product showing right here from the list. And this is really how you use FullStackHero. So this is a very simple introduction to it. You can see that you can do a lot more with this, but you have full control over adding your new entities. You can render different types of styles for the pages. I was using a Razor page to keep things simple, but you could also use an AngularJS front end or React as well, or even Blazor. And the newer version of FullStackHero does use .NET 9 and C# 13 and uses Blazor for the UI. So you can also do that as well. And I imagine you could also take out Blazor in the newer version of using .NET 9 and create your own Angular front end or React front end as well. So this is FullStackHero. If you're interested in something like this to help put together your next web application in C#.NET, check out the website and give it a try. If you like this video, please comment and subscribe and let me know. Thank you.